For over 4 decades, a young girl's name was lost to time. She was found on a cold November morning in 1980, lying near a Texas highway, alone, silent, and nameless. For 41 long years, she was known only as Walker County Jane Doe, until modern science and one team's relentless determination finally gave her back her name, Sherri Ann Jarvis. This is her story. A girl from Minnesota. Sherri Ann Jarvis was born on March 9, 1966, in Stillwater, Minnesota. She grew up in a quiet town surrounded by rolling hills and pine trees. People who knew her described her as bright, curious, and kind, the kind of girl who smiled easily but carried a lot of weight on her young shoulders. By her early teens, life wasn't easy for Sherri. She had struggles at home, and at one point, she was placed in a youth facility, a common option for troubled teens in the 1970s. But Sherri wanted more than rules and fences. She wanted freedom. One day in 1980, at just 14 years old, she decided to run away. No one knows exactly how she traveled, but evidence suggests she was heading south, maybe toward Houston or Louisiana, chasing a dream of a new life. It was a decision that would tragically lead her straight into danger. The road to Texas. It's late October 1980. Somewhere along Interstate 45, truck stops buzzed with travelers and neon diner signs flicker through the night. This stretch of highway, from Houston to Dallas, would later become infamous. Locals would call it the Texas Killing Fields, after dozens of women were found murdered there across the years. Sherri didn't know that. Witnesses later said a young girl matching her description had been seen at a truck stop north of Houston. She reportedly asked someone for directions to the Ellis prison unit, saying she wanted to see a friend there. When asked her age, she claimed she was 19. In reality, she was just 14. That was the last confirmed sighting of her alive. The discovery. November 1st, 1980. Just after dawn, a truck driver spotted something strange near a fence line along Interstate 45, about 2 miles north of Huntsville, Texas. When officers arrived, they found the body of a young girl lying about 20 feet from the road. She was nude, except for a pair of red high-heeled sandals, far too mature for her age. Her body showed signs of sexual assault and ligature strangulation. There were also bruises, evidence of a violent struggle. Investigators believed she had been killed just hours before being found. No purse, no identification, no name. Only a haunting question. Who was she? Walker County Jane Doe. The local sheriff's office immediately opened a homicide investigation. They took fingerprints, dental records, and even created a composite sketch of the girl. Posters were mailed across Texas and neighboring states. She was described as white, around 14 to 16 years old, with brown hair and hazel eyes. Her teeth were well cared for. She'd clearly come from somewhere where people cared about her. But no missing person report matched. Not from Texas, not from anywhere. And so she became Walker County Jane Doe. Her body was buried in a small cemetery under a simple gravestone with no name, only a date, November 1st, 1980, and the word unidentified. The silent years. As years turned into decades, her case sat on shelves gathering dust, but never forgotten. Detectives came and went, some retired, some passed away, but all remembered the young girl with red sandals. Every few years, someone would reopen the file, hoping technology had advanced enough to help. But until the 2000s, forensic science could do little beyond DNA extraction. Her story lived on in true crime circles and internet forums. People nicknamed her the girl by the fence, Walker County Jane Doe, or the lost child of I-45. No one knew her name. And for her family back in Minnesota, no one even knew she was gone. They thought maybe she had simply run away for good. That silence on both sides lasted 41 years.
The DNA revolution. Fast forward to 2019. A new tool is changing cold cases everywhere: forensic genealogy. The same method used to catch the Golden State Killer in California is now being applied to unknown victims. Texas Rangers and Walker County investigators exhumed her remains, carefully collecting DNA samples from her bones. They partnered with the Othram Lab in the Woodlands, Texas, specialists in recovering DNA from degraded evidence. Using advanced sequencing and genetic genealogy, scientists began building a family tree based on her DNA. Months of work, endless cross-checking, and then a breakthrough. They found distant relatives from Minnesota. From there, genealogists narrowed it down until one name fit perfectly. Her name was Sherri Ann Jarvis. Her name returned. On November 9th, 2021, the Walker County Sheriff's Office announced the identification publicly. After 41 years, the girl once known as Walker County Jane Doe finally had her name back. Detectives reached out to her family in Minnesota. They were heartbroken but relieved. After decades of uncertainty, they finally knew what had happened. Sherri's surviving relatives described her as a sweet, smart, brave little girl who deserved better. Her identification was more than a scientific success. It was a restoration of dignity. She was no longer a case file. She was Sherri. The search for justice. But one question still remains. Who killed her? Despite her identification, the murderer has never been caught. Investigators believe Sherri likely encountered someone, perhaps a truck driver, who offered her a ride. She was young, alone, and vulnerable. The I-45 corridor was a hunting ground for predators in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Some believe her killer might be linked to other murders in the region, part of what's known as the Texas Killing Fields, an area between Houston and Galveston where dozens of young women vanished. But there's no definitive proof tying any suspect to Sherri's death yet. DNA evidence from her case is being re-examined using newer, more sensitive techniques, hoping to match it to known offenders. For now, her killer's identity remains a mystery. Remembering Sherri. In 2021, a memorial was held for Sherri in Walker County. Local residents placed flowers at her gravesite, this time with a new headstone that finally bore her full name. Sherri Ann Jarvis, March 9th, 1966, November 1st, 1980. For those who worked on the case, it was a moment of closure, but not the end. They continued to search for the person responsible, determined to bring justice to the little girl who waited 41 years to be found. Reflection. When we think about cases like Sherri's, we're reminded that behind every Jane Doe is a real human being. A child who laughed, dreamed, and loved. For Sherri, her story might have ended in tragedy, but it also became a symbol of perseverance, technology, and compassion. Because of modern science and the relentless work of people who refused to forget her, her voice was finally heard again. Somewhere along that long stretch of highway in Texas, a life ended far too soon, but her story didn't. It waited quietly beneath the earth until the world was ready to listen. Sherri Ann Jarvis was only 14. She never got to grow up, fall in love, or see the world. But now, after 41 years, we can say her name again. And as long as we remember her, she will never be forgotten. If you found this story meaningful, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. It helps more people learn about unsolved cases like Sherri's.